involved, because it's really your interaction with the panelists that would be enlightening. So I would like to open the floor for discussion. I'm mindful of my time as well, so I want to open up the floor for discussion. Any questions now?
Good afternoon to everyone. I'm Womo, and I'm a parent advocate of FENSIM. And I also have a child on spectrum, and he's 14 years old. So it's not like a question or something. It's just a point of view of a mother. So I've been listening to the first session. The first one and the second one. I wanted to ask the question in the first session also, but I didn't get a chance. But I think the first and the second one is it's connected to each other. So from my point of view as a mother, is like it's always nice to see that the person with disability in a higher post or working for a civil servant or in a service and all this. But if you now, invisible disability is becoming very common. As Dr. Nima, the Sir Nima said that from 31, the one is always an invisible disability. And I'm sure in every one of our family, one of the member is always like that. Now, it's very good to see that a lot of physical disability, deaf, person, see, and all this are working in this government job, private sector, and all this. But it's my point of view, so I was thinking, since the Ministry of Education has started the selective subject, because for an autistic child, a daily activities for the daily living skill is very difficult for them. But to fix a Lego, it's like a piece of cake for them. So though they lack in some things, but they are like master in other things. So Ministry of Education has already started a selective subject, and hopefully we have a transit school for the higher education, and hopefully we will have the graduate schools for them to graduate in the selective subject. So my request for the Ministry of Education is like, why not give them they have given them a selective subject, so why not give them a platform like board exam? They're not allowed to do the board exam, but why not give them a platform where the subject they take, which can be like, and they do, and same like that for all the policymakers, the RCIC also. Why not create a job opportunity for them also? Speak for others. It's not something that I'm too proud to say, but what my son actually does is that's the life that I actually live. But my son is dead. He can still do the math and science of the statistics every day. We should create an opportunity. We should bring the students. They can go to the college for the job. So it's just my point of view as a mother. Why not make changes in the system? Why not see it from a different perspective, so that this kind of kids will be also given a privilege to have a life that they deserve, not just the screens and all this.
Thank you. I think point well noted. I think also panelists from earlier from the SEN division, of course, FENSIM has a big role to play in this, in trying to convince everybody else to understand that not only this making souvenirs and all that alone is not the only track for all of these children. They are all differently able to really tease out what each one of them can really do. But until we create a system that can recognize, screen, and all of that, I don't know if any one of you have. Thank you. Thank you for that. I think that's well noted. Again, the point is, from all of this, from what happens today, we are trying to put together a set of recommendations for the government. So hopefully with the later sessions as well, we'll continue to move towards more discussion so that we can distill some of these takeaways. Any next question?
Las, thank you so much for the opportunity. So I'm Tharpa. I work with the Disabled People's Organization of Bhutan. So that's say for the period of time I've worked with the disability community, the biggest challenge, there might be other challenges, but one significant I have seen is the literacy rate of persons with disabilities. So even when we have the RCACD examination and everything, there is a standard set already saying that graduate Chigo, you'll have to finish you'll have to finish your universities in Michila. But if you see in reality, like Madam shared, we do not have a proper transition in Evala. So the maximum, if seen, can be the vocational training and skills for invisible disabilities like ASD de Zumola. And also, Tajru MOASD service, there are persons with blindness mostly who are graduates and who can avail services, but there are also very countable, very few. So, are there any discussions of either making the services more, like this can be a question to Sir Doji if you are here from the morning, and also to RCC ma'am. So, are there any plans of maybe making the services more approachable for them, more adaptable for them, or any plans of supporting their higher education? So, that is one question. And another question I have is Okaski Sir Lula. So the strategy that you have mentioned, Sir, particularly for persons with disabilities, if you could share some of the social protection schemes that you are planning to Anila put in the strategy.
Yeah, thank you so much, Tarpa. So in terms of employment being given only to graduates, that's not true there. So we have employment at various occupation categories. Somebody with a mere class 8 gets employed, class 10, 12, somebody with a vocational gets employed, a degree, a master's. Everyone has equal opportunity to be employed in the civil service. But of course, the position level that one is appointed at differs. For instance, I do remember a specific case of the commission giving exception. The system, the rule required the person to have class 12 with a certificate in vocation. But then we've had a person with disability come in and he was really good. He was well experienced, but he did not have like a qualification. So what the commission did, of course at a lower level, not at par with everyone who enters at that specific position level, at a lower level, the commission made an exception and appointed the person directly. So these exceptions are being made.
Les, thank you for the question. So before I answer, just to provide an overview of the strategy. So as most of the participants and the earlier discussion surrounded on in terms of the challenge, while we have good policies and laws in place, it's the implementation part that where we are lagging. So in terms of articulating these visions as enshrined in the Constitution and also based on our GNH values of equity, inclusion, and well-being. So this is where the strategy comes into play in terms of articulating these visions into concrete actions and programs. And maybe by way of Anila, to answer the concerns raised by the earlier question. So the overall vision and the objective of this strategy is that at the end of the day, we want to have a Bhutan where all people, irrespective of disabilities, economic status, live a life, a dignified life, and realize the maximum potential of each individual. So that's the aspiration we have, but I think for that we have to take a progressive steps. We cannot reach it at one go. So I think we have the right and strong architecture in place. The only thing is now we need to focus on implementation. So eventually, I think all the concerns raised, like in terms of having the systems in place should happen to normal. And to respond to your question in terms of what schemes are there in the social protection for persons with disability. So for the social protection, we are taking the life cycle approach. So trying to see vulnerabilities at the stage of life from cradle to grave, from the time child is conceived until death. So we can foresee disabilities at different stages. Laluchi, some are born disabled, some get disabled over a period of time with old age. And for that, under this strategy, we approach through three key areas in terms of social insurance, then social assistance, and the active labor market interventions. So specifically in terms of disability, I think in the strategy, while there are new interventions and programs, most of the interventions are actually being currently implemented. Earlier in the panel discussion, we heard members like sharing on how current recently approved the Income Tax Act provide provision for tax relief for persons with disabilities. While the amount of relief may be quite insignificant, so it's a start for us with I think 40,000 for the return. And also, if you look at some of the policies like the national education policy, the national health policy, and the national construction policies, you can see that they have provisions that actually requires the agencies to actually have inclusive and disabled-friendly infrastructures and services. And also one of the key strategic intervention that from the OCA's point of view we are trying to do is actually mainstream this disability into the sectoral policies. While we have separate policies for persons with disabilities, but the important thing is the policies, the sectoral policies must be disable friendly and inclusive, in the sense that just as we mainstream and integrate gender, climate change, poverty, and disaster into any plan, be it the central government plan or the local government plan. So similarly, we need to integrate this aspect of disability, not just disabilities, but now we are also talking about integrating the population dynamics into every sectoral policies. So that's one key area where, in terms of the systemic structure, we are doing. But then the main part comes to implementation. So under the social protection, we have identified. For your information, the strategy is currently in draft stage, it's at an advanced stage. It has been presented to the government secretaries, and we have received some comments and feedbacks. We are trying to incorporate and refine it, and hopefully the strategy we are targeting to complete it by January 2026. Some of the specific schemes in terms of disability in the social protection are like expanding the insurance coverage for general population, in particular for persons with disabilities. And in this, we are trying to look into providing subsidy. For example, as you must be all aware, that our life insurance, everyone is entitled for life insurance as a citizen, and the government pays 55%. So out of 290, 108 is borne by government, and I think it's 97 or 98. 98 is paid by the individuals. However, we are trying to look into revisiting this life insurance and trying to make it a tiered system where those persons who have economic capacity, they may be required to pay the full premium, but for based on the economic status, those people with lower income levels, the government subsidy can be maintained at a different with a different proportion. The other thing is we are also proposing in terms of providing grants and allowance for persons with disability and caregiver grant. But these are some of the interventions that are just standalone. It has to be embedded within the whole ecosystems of creating those enabling conditions, because providing allowance alone is not going to benefit in terms of realizing the well-being of persons with disabilities. But if approved, our first priority is to provide disability allowance, but not for all the persons with disabilities, but in a tiered system where those people with severe disability with no income, target. So this is one important recommendation that we have proposed. And on the caregiver support also, we understand that and we acknowledge that there's a lot of economic burden on the family members looking after their disabled member. So I think as per study, if you have one disabled family member, there should be 3 family members looking after, and the unpaid work and labor that goes into it. And also to link that to the macroeconomic functioning. So if we can provide not only in terms of grant, but also the services. So in the earlier panel, I think one of the panel members have raised the need to have a caregiver in the schools, so that the parents and family members can engage in active economic participation. That is something we have taken into account and proposed in the strategy that's renewing. And maybe to take this opportunity, I would like to share that while we have ratified the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disability in 2024, we did so with 4 reservations. I think all of you must be aware. And to as a commitment of the government towards improving the well-being of persons with disability, the government has currently tabled the amendment to the reservation to do away with the reservations that we have initially proposed. So out of 4, we have recommended 1 reservation to be completely withdrawn, the 3 other reservations with modification, because the earlier reservation has gone as a blanket reservations, indicating that the countries shall not oblige to the specific articles. But we reviewed and not when I say reviewed, there was a task force being constituted, and I would like to inform that in that task force we had representative from CSO. For the first time in government-led task force, we have representative from the disabled people's organization, represented by the executive director in the task force. So that is also something that we are trying to be more inclusive. And in terms of carrying out this review for the CRPD, we have found out that in terms of aligning our national laws with the CRPD and to the policy for persons with disability, we have found that the Labor and Employment Act of Bhutan was somewhat silent on disability. So the task force recommended the Labor Act is currently under review for amendment. So the task force recommended, which was actually approved by the cabinet, recommended to look into making the act disabled inclusive. Thus.
Thank you.
Plus, I have a question.
Well, I see a lot of hands, but I'm afraid I'm being told 30 minutes. Okay.
Las Kusangpula, my name is Yande. I'm a freelance writer and also learning sign language with school. Oh my God, I'm blanking out. Anyways, I have a 2-part question. The first part is, and this is again from a commoner speaking, a lot of the times when you talk about skilling for the disabled people living with disability, it's always like tailoring or baking. I was wondering if there are any courses on photography, music, art, acting, filmmaking, so they can explore those subjects as well and try to see if they can make a career out of that. And the second question is, what are the policies around protection for them when it comes to the stories of people living with disabilities, the depiction in media? So sometimes what happens is you have a story of a deaf person and a movie is made on it, but that might not be accurate to what the deaf person is living with, and then they just sensationalize it, is that the word, and dramatize it and make it like, oh my God, this is it. And I think the only movie which did justice, at least for me, it was like Tare Zameen Par, like you show the struggles and everything, but if you don't have the skills to make a movie at that level, then what you end up doing is showing a movie and then giving a wrong message to the public, saying like, oh, and I think in the morning we talked about the word I, you want that I think that's at the end of the day that what the movie ends up doing, which is very negative. And the sub part of that would be, even on social media like Facebook and TikTok, you see a lot of people showing like they're being depicted as helping them, and helping the disability, and they're getting views while they're helping it. And maybe the intention behind this is really nice, and you're showing that, yeah, there's this person who's helping someone who's disabled. But for someone like me, I'm looking at it and I'm like, this is giving such a wrong message that, and I think we had a conversation in the morning that, oops, sorry, wire. We had a conversation in the morning that the whole idea of trying to change how we look at disability is that they are empowered and we don't need to help them, and we don't have to be and kind, and they can do it themselves. But what social media posts like this end up doing is we see them negatively and we want to like do all of that, and it's, there's a word for it, I'm forgetting, like empathy to misuse women, and like trying to, anyways, coming back, so just wondering like what are the policies for protection of disabled people and depiction in media, and trainings in media for them so that they can also choose those careers. Thank you, La Kadiche.
Thank you. One observation, of course, as you rightly pointed out, the skills development, that being restricted to only a few things. I think that is something that more and more people are becoming aware of. The Bhutan Foundation, for example, worked on creative media for people with disabilities. That was one training session that engaged a lot of people with different forms of disabilities, but they were really good at expressing themselves and learning the skills and all that. And I think we need more of that. We need more of. I think earlier we heard from the Civil Service Commission as well that it's not relegated to just only one or two things, but if they have the capacity, there are accommodations being made in all of these. But I think we need to have that larger dialogue. We need to create that change in mindset that the minute you say, oh, a person with disability doesn't necessarily have to equate that with any particular type of skill, because there are so many people with different, strengths. As you can see in this room as well, there's a lot of bright people, who can do many different things. But we do need to create that environment. As for the social media perception, I don't know if anybody has any authority on that, or this is almost a free-for-all, but I do understand your point. There are many who just do it for the likes. Just, look at him, so kind, he's doing something great. I don't think that is an area that we need to go really to do. I think there are bigger issues at hand that all of us should be working on. But anyway, good point, well noted. Let's move on to the next. Okay, here's one more response.
No, I think not exactly in response to your question, but I think an excellent question that we should all ponder upon, because we see now, as Som Yang rightly pointed out, a lot of people trying to help with all good intentions, but I think at the same time, it's they're also breaching the person's privacy. And Kunzang and I was just discussing that it has to be Bigma, I think, who has to monitor all this. I think in terms of policy and all of that, I'm not too sure if they have a policy in place, but it should definitely be Bigma who should be monitoring, like for example, the instance you shared about the movie and all of that. Because what I've heard is it has to undergo censorship from Bigma in Mapala. So I think Bigma should be I don't know if holding them accountable is the right word, but they should definitely be the ones monitoring. And also with regards to, I don't know about persons with disability, but with regards to women and children, National Commission for Women and Children as the competent authority has issued, I believe, a number of not warning, but have spoken to them to not breach people's privacy like that. And if you've noticed, ever since the notice was given to those individuals, the number of videos have gone down on TikTok and other social media platforms. So yeah, just wanted to share that.
Now I wanted to just share on the skilling and education front. So there are approximately 388 trained special education teachers in Bhutan across 48 inclusive schools and 2 dedicated special institutes in Wangsil and Kaling. And happy to share here that approximately 8 to 9 graduates from Wangsil have been employed in Wangsil as instructors. And I was so happy earlier this morning to see so many familiar faces here, because I studied in Rugel, and when I was studying, doing my year 11, 12 there, they were little kids, and now they're instructors there, changing lives of so many others. So these shows that there are opportunities for skillings, there are opportunities for skillings, but of course it is limited to only, like you mentioned, tailoring, wood carving, furniture making. But with liaising with Minister of Education, we can of course bring in other skillings like photography and others, whichever the students may be interested in. These can always be incorporated in the skillings program.
A few points. I would like to first of all commend both the Cabinet Affairs and the Civil Service Commission for the initiatives that you have taken. And even hearing from the Civil Service Commission, I think there are efforts, and the fact that you have gone into initiating this discussion within your organization. This is exactly the kind of conversation we would like to stir up and all that. And the purpose of the conference, such forums, is exactly to have more discussions so that we create more awareness. And I just couldn't help but calculate the percentage out of 31. It's good you have found out there are 31 persons with disabilities employed in civil service, which is very negligible, which is 0.1%. But I see again this is no fault for civil service, because we have not worked on the transitions. There's no graduate per se. So I think it's to work on the systems of transition so that children with disabilities could take different pathways, not just be confined to skilling again. And on the point that one of, I think Yande pointed out, I think there were a lot of concerns raised amongst the parent group on use of well-intended individuals who want to advocate and say, oh, they're doing these things, but I think parents have also raised concerns. I think Prashant is well aware, and it has, like Dhamma has pointed out, has gone down, but we need to keep talking about it and create awareness. The other thing is, in terms, since you come from creative industry background, I just thought we could share as a way of information. We piloted and tested out creative sort of a program for children with disability. And right now, between Atang, us, and Changanka, we will be starting that program from next academic session. And it's on graphic design, animation, video editing, sound production, that kind of thing, maybe. So it's about creating different alternate pathways. And on the front of inclusion, when we talk about inclusion in public sector, we couldn't have many panel members, so we have 4, but in the audience, the purpose of inviting, I think we have specialists from labor, Suman sir. So this is exactly we want to talk about inclusion even in the private sector. And we hope through the conference you take back those key messages and work on inclusion at different sectors that you work in. And one last point, when the Cabinet Affairs is working on the social protection, I think it's a very good initiative. I think we have heard, time and again about how everybody is doing their own thing and it's not coordinated. And in between, parents, individuals are lost and running from pillars to post, and in between, I mean, like you feel lost and all that and fragmented. So a strategy that helps coordinate things, it's timely and it's a good initiative. And in your discussion, we hope like a national registry is something that you are thinking about, because that can really help coordination, identifying gaps. If you are to deliver welfare benefits and all that, you need to track by individuals, track by needs. So I hope like the cabinet is also, I'm sure like you're already working on it. Last.
Ma'am, on that front, I just wanted to share that we, in the HR, we have the HR information system called the ZES, Shared Electronic Recruitment System. But in there, we lack capturing all of these data. And because we've not defined what disability entails, we've not been able to accurately capture the data. And what the civil service could also actually explore is we have the civil service welfare scheme, and there is a possibility of exploring welfare schemes for civil servants who may become disabled over a period of time. No? So there are possibilities like that.
Okay, so sorry, before anything, I just wanted to, Yande question, I just wanted to add on, because Disabled People's Organization, we also work towards the skilling, and also we advocate for policies. So the first question that she put up about the skilling programs just being tailoring and bakery and stuff, a lot of times when we are assessing a person with disability for skilling, it has to match their disability, their ability to consume a skill. So till now, DPOB has provided skills in tailoring, bakery, ICT, and many other areas. But from all those, the ones who have skilled in tailoring has proved out to be like more successful, who has been able to move out to the industry, maybe job market, and have their own living. So that's why we focus more on tailoring our organization, but also the fact that we are exploring other opportunities for persons with disabilities that match their own disabilities. That thing. And the second one on the portrayal and depiction of persons with disabilities on social media. So for everyone's information, we do have a section called Information and Technology in the National Policy for Persons with Disabilities, under which we have a section particularly for portrayal and depiction of persons with disabilities on social media. But like Joshi sir said, a lot of gaps and implementations. So in that section, it is particularly mentioned that the MOIS, the Ministry of Information, Communication, and Employment, in collaboration with relevant stakeholders, should develop a guideline which will uphold the dignity of persons with disabilities while they are being portrayed on social media. But till date, to my knowledge, I do not think there is a guideline like that, and maybe because of the implementation gaps that is there. So that was just an information.
Thank you. Mr. Tashi from the OCASC said, Rola, we've ratified the UNCRPD. We have this beautiful national policy for persons with disabilities that was drafted in 2019, and myself, along with a few members, our parents were also a part of the perspective. We have the strategy coming up, but for me now, as a parent advocate of a child with disabilities, and as the voice of the parents raising children with disabilities, I would like to see our rights-based system, and what are the government's thoughts on actually act to protect the rights of persons with disabilities.
Yes, thank you for this important question. So, in terms of the legal provision of having a kind of a disability act, we are trying to approach this disability from a reverse side, and the reason is, I'm sure all of you know, one of the issues with us is we have good acts and policies, but the implementation is a big issue. And when we reviewed the case of poor implementation, what we found was that without doing a proper assessment and having practical lessons and challenges, we directly come up with an act imable. And having an act is very easy, man. The parliament approved, but the main issue is after the act is being approved, then it has to translate into implementation in whole. And most of our acts for now are mostly on the paper. So for that very reason, we are trying to approach from the reverse side, in the sense that we first wanted to implement. For that matter, you must be aware that we signed the CRPD in 2010. We are signatory to CRPD in 2010, but we ratified only in 2024. And people are questioning why did it take so long for us to ratify the CRPD. And from the government's side, the response was like, in terms of ratifying the convention, first we need to have a policy. So through all these years, from 2010 until 2019, the national policy for persons with disability was being drafted in alignment with the international convention. So in similar manner, I think eventually we need to have an act. There's no doubt about it. But I think for now, we wanted to first implement the strategy, and maybe through the implementation, we are going to come across a lot of challenges and get a clear and holistic perspective of the disability as a general, and then come up with an act. So that's the approach that we are taking to Unibi. But definitely, there should be an act on disability sometime. So that's a response. I hope it answers your concern. Oh, sorry. Sorry. In terms of the principles, I think definitely with this adoption of the NPPD, the policy for persons with disability, and the CRPD, we have definitely moved from the welfare approach of looking to disability to a right-based. So you can see for the strategy, the core principles for the strategy is based on the constitution and the right-based approach. So as an individual, you have it's enshrined in the country, you have right to access for free education services and right to livelihood. So it's absolutely based on the right-based approach institutionally, but not from the welfare approach.
Yes. While I understand the place from where Sartashi is coming from in terms of taking one step at a time in terms of enacting a law, and also understanding the fact that many of the acts remain idle for now, and that is also because implementation is a big problem, as rightly pointed out by Sartashi earlier. At the parliament also, I guess at some point, the members of parliament also need to take some sort of accountability in terms of the kind of documents that needs to be submitted to the parliament. Because for every bill, you need to submit an executive summary and a financial memorandum stating how you will enact the bill, which we hardly do. It is there in the rules of procedure and the National Assembly Council Act, but which we hardly do. Again, a problem of implementation. But coming to what Madam Prashanta shared earlier, I mean, in absence of a disability law that clearly outlines the rights, accountability, obligations on the states, social protection, and all of that, I think persons with disabilities will continue to depend on goodwill rather than guaranteed entitlement. So I think although Cabinet has a plan in place as to how and when the Act will come in place, I feel that it should come at the earliest Saranomela in order for us to make all the provisions that are there in the policies and strategies to be enforceable. Otherwise, without an Act, I think we cannot hold anybody accountable for anything that they do not do or perform. So, to share.
Thank you. My question is to Tashi sir. Royal Society for Senior Citizens have closely worked on social protection, on consultation, and we are happy to know that now it is in the advanced phase. We were really looking forward for some of the benefits we have already seen in the strategy. Having been told now, I want to speak on the prospect of CSOs. Be it people or disabled people organization, senior citizen and PENSEM whatsoever. So the hiccup here is, as of now, the government don't have any nodal agency to cater the services. We are facing a lot of problem while working with the donor also. In one time, Royal Society for Senior Citizen was placed in Ministry of Education in one are going to pursue with disabled people organization. So they told us that ministry don't have anything to do with senior citizen. Exactly. But other around, if you put that NCWC is under what to say now, Ministry of Education Skill Development. So basically, when we look into that prospect, then senior citizen is vulnerable, and NCWC caters some of the services for vulnerable population. So if you look into the best practices in other countries, they have social welfare ministry. So we are not asking for some big ministry or whatsoever in Bhutan. We understand the constraint that the government faces, the challenges we have, and we really look forward if the cabinet have some plan in place to just to set up as a unit to deliver some of these social issues. As I exactly pointed out, that a lot of gaps has been there in the policy also, in coordination also, while working with government and CSO. These are the issues we face in the field, and we expect that some kind of intervention, not into a ministry level, a department, or maybe a unit. If you have a plan, can you kindly explain us on if you have some certain plan in place?
Lastly, just to respond directly, in terms of institutional setup, so not having a specific agency to look after disability and senior citizens. So earlier, these cross-cutting issues have been managed and coordinated by the erstwhile Gross National Happiness Commission. But with the reform, I think this mandate has been passed down to the OCAS, Office of Cabinet Affairs. While we also don't have any written formal or executive directives managing us, but just because of the transition of GNHC and the institution of OCAS, the OCAS has taken as the lead agency for implementing formulation and anything to do with social protection. So social protection, it includes disabilities. And if you look into the draft strategy, we have made provisions to set up a unit under the OCAS that will specifically look after the management and coordination of implementation of programs related to disability and social protection, social living. So I think once the strategy is approved within the OCAS, there will be a unit that will be looking after.
We'll take the last question now. Thank you, La. I'm Trinchuki Tutachi. I think in the morning and in the afternoon session also my institute names kept coming up. I'm with Athang Institute. La. I manage two vocational institutes registered with Athang. And I'm sorry, Ngani, I would like to apologize to Mr. Tashi because I think you keep ending up with a lot of questions, and mine is also somewhat directed to you only. As a vocational institute, when we do provide these skill-based training to persons with disabilities, I think that was one thing that I was wondering. And earlier you mentioned about creating that enabling situation, looking at the social welfare of persons with disabilities in Bhutan. And then one thing that from the private sector we also look at is, from the way I see it, is disability, the two categories. Like there are those who can still function and contribute to the society. And then those, as earlier said, sorry to mention, but then they do tend to become a burden for the society and their own family when they. But then for those who can still contribute to the society, I think that's where they end up getting into the skilling opportunities and being part of somebody who can still contribute. And right now, what I'm hearing from the panelists, it's mostly from the government perspective, never. Listening to Madam Kings and the RCC, how enabling the RGOV has made it for those with disabilities to work in the civil service. And you also mentioned about this upcoming, I think the labor law changes coming up. And one thing that I always used to wonder is how enabling can the private sector be motivated in employing those with disabilities? Are there any, because in other countries there are certain societies or social welfare organizations, I think that may not be a ministry, but then there are some society, even I think DPOB and the relevant institution may serve that, but then how do these society motivate, and then from the private sector also, because private sector basically they always look at the incentive of how much an employee can perform, and with those with disabilities they would have some hesitation, but then now again as a part of the CSRD. So how do you how do the any legal system or the policies motivate private sectors to employ those with disabilities? Are those being considered in the policy documents that are coming up? Those are and I think one thing that incentive that I could see is how can a particular organization who really is supporting those with disability, employing them, how can it be one form of leverage for that organization, to get recognized in certain maybe taxation and all these. I think those things that came up, but then anything that has been considered here. That's the question.
Yes, thank you. I think in terms of making workplace inclusive and disabled friendly, and also incentivizing private sector to actually employ disabled persons, under the strategy this is taken care by the active labor market interventions. So as you rightly pointed out, so under we have identified quite a number of interventions that we can implement to actually encourage private sectors to employ. So as per the recent statistics, out of 12,000 employers, only 133 employ persons with disability, which is just around 1%. So of course, there's a lot we have to do in terms of trying to include persons with disability into the private sector employment front. So we also look in terms of intervention. We are looking in terms of providing fiscal incentives like tax breaks to those employers and business entities and enterprises that employ persons with disabilities, and some of them are already there in the Income Tax Act, and also in the fiscal incentives of the Minister of Finance, and not just for the private entities, but also for the persons of disability themselves who would like to venture into enterprise and entrepreneurial businesses, providing skills, I think, and also in terms of capital investments through the ESP. So there are interventions being planned, and I just wanted to touch upon in terms of the issue of having that lack of accountability in absence of law, where the ministries or the concerned agencies are not held accountable for not implementing the policies. In a way, I would say that we can hold agencies accountability even in absence of laws as being. And just to explain, for example, we require every agencies and ministries to come up with their annual key deliverables mula, annual performance agreement, under which one of the key indicators are in terms of trying to access the agency's expenditure in the disability spheres and providing budget based on disability inclusion. So, and the other areas is in terms of monitoring. Now, there's no proper grievance reporting and grievances redressal mechanism in place. So that's one area where I think a lot of things that are happening on the ground doesn't reach to the authorities or concerned agencies. And for example, the labor and employment rules and regulation actually prohibit discrimination in any forms, including for persons with disabilities. But then things happen, discrimination happen, but the ministries are not aware, not because they are not doing their job, but because there is no system in place, constrained by limited human resources. So leveraging the innovation and technology, I think the Ministry of Industry, Commerce and Entrepreneurship is coming up with new systems for monitoring, especially to address this discrimination at workplace, and also, and just to share, in terms of the aligning of the government policies, we found out that the employment rules and regulation has a condition set where an individual who is aspiring to apply for a job has to produce a medical certificate, irrespective of the job that the person is applying. And this we found out quite interesting in the sense that from the disability perspective, this is quite discriminatory. So we have recommended this. While certain occupations and jobs may require, for example, in armed forces and those jobs that require physical abilities, but the rest of the other jobs may not require these medical certificates. So we actually, through the cabinet secretariat, we have actually written to the Ministry of Industry, Commerce and Entrepreneurship to really look into this and change this during their review of the Labour Act. Thus.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for a very engaging session. Let me just quickly run through and wrap up, all that we've discussed. There were so many things that our esteemed panelists have brought up, and I think a lot of interesting questions. But we touched upon the fact that a national registry would be a beginning that would allow us to track individuals right from birth onwards to see what sort of interventions can be provided. We talked a lot about transition as well. For example, the Bhutan Foundation has been working with the Education Ministry since 2008. In the Sen School, and then over the course of years, I know we worked with many of you. I think a lot of you, started off with us, or so somehow were supported in some way or the other. But I think there was a lot of talk about transition. There are so many Sen schools, but what happens after that? Is the quality of education good enough to then move them on to the next phase of their lives, or do they go home and just stay there? I think there's a lot of question and attention needed to address transitioning and mainstreaming. I think there was much mention of intersectoral integration, the fact that there are a lot of different moving parts almost working in isolation sometimes, and there's a much larger need to bring everybody together so that we're all working and communicating with each other and working together. There was mention of a lack of a nodal agency. So which is that agency ultimately going to be that will, for example, house the registry, just as an example, because there are patient confidentiality, there is data transparency, all of these issues that probably need to be given serious consideration as well as to who is going to house such kind of information. And then, of course, we moved on to talking about right-based versus welfare-based, and the desire to move more towards a right-based society, especially in terms of people with disabilities. And then finally, of course, one of the comments earlier from one of the audience members was the fact, that focused on social media portrayal of people with disabilities and the need to have better regulation around that, monitoring, and somehow, having certain agencies be responsible for regulating these incidents. And then finally, there was talk about private sector engagement and how, what kind of incentives could be given to the private sector to bring them more into the fold and to encourage them to also participate better in all of this. So we covered a lot of ground, and I hope this will continue. This is just the beginning. I think we're having a lot of very useful back and forth. We're also all getting educated as well. I'm definitely getting educated. So this is all very good sign, good sign that everybody wants to work together, wants to move in one direction in serving the cause of this community. So once again, I would like to thank all of our esteemed panelists for sharing their wisdom and experience with all of us. So a round of applause for our panelists.